Where did you take all our money? Then go live there. You're not living here anymore. My husband gave all our family savings to his mother, thinking I was naive and would forgive him. But oh, how wrong he was. Before we start, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you and enjoy the story. Evgenia stood at her kitchen window, watching her husband quickly get into the car. Something about the way he moved felt off. Normally, Vasily was calm and organized, but today he was in a rush, like he was late for something important. Yet, he still had an hour before work. She turned away from the window and started clearing the breakfast table. Vasily had barely touched his favorite cheese pancakes. He just sipped his coffee nervously, eyes constantly flicking to his phone. When she tried talking to him about weekend plans, his answers were short and distracted, as if his mind was somewhere else. Evgenia had noticed this change in him for weeks. Before, he would always share stories from work, discuss their plans, and talk about purchases or family matters. Lately, he gave vague answers and often came home late, blaming urgent projects. While collecting the dirty dishes, she absent-mindedly checked the pockets of his jacket before hanging it in the closet, a habit from their 15 years of marriage. Vasily always forgot little things in his pockets, tickets, receipts, or coins. Her fingers found a folded piece of paper. She opened it and froze. It was a receipt from the jewelry store Brilliant, dated yesterday. Amount: 47,000 rubles. Items: sapphire earrings and a pendant. Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't received any gifts yesterday. In fact, she couldn't even remember the last time Vasily had given her jewelry. She read the receipt several times, hoping she was mistaken. But the date and numbers were clear. 47,000 rubles, nearly half of his monthly salary. What could he have spent so much money on? Evgenia sat down at the kitchen table, still holding the receipt. Her mind was racing. Maybe he was planning a surprise? But her birthday was still 3 months away, and their anniversary was 6 months away. And why would he buy such an expensive gift without any reason? Or could it be something else? She didn't even want to think about that possibility. Vasily couldn't be cheating. They'd been together for so many years, had a strong family, and shared future plans. Still, why was he hiding such a big purchase from her? She slipped the receipt into her pocket and tried to focus on her chores, but her thoughts kept going back to it. By evening, she decided to ask him directly. Vasily came home looking tired and irritated. After dinner, he settled into his chair with a newspaper. Evgenia thought the moment was right. "Vasily," she began carefully, pulling out the receipt. "I found this in your jacket. Can you explain it?" Vasily looked up from the paper, saw the slip in her hands, and his expression changed instantly. There was tension in his face, though he tried to hide it with a forced smile. "Oh, that," he waved his hand casually. "It's a work thing, a corporate gift for my boss. Her birthday's coming up. 47,000 for a corporate gift." Evgenia asked in surprise. "Well, you know, Marina Viktorovna is a very influential woman," he said, avoiding her gaze. "A lot depends on her. Better to spend a little now than regret missed opportunities later." Evgenia nodded, but something in his tone didn't convince her. First of all, he had never spent that much on work gifts before. Second, he spoke hesitantly, still not looking her in the eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "We usually discuss big expenses." "I just forgot," Vasily shrugged, burying himself back in his newspaper. "It's nothing. No need to hold a meeting over every purchase." "Nothing?" He had just called 47,000 rubles nothing. Evgenia stayed silent, but inside, she felt a tight knot of anxiety. Something wasn't right. She just didn't know what it was yet. The next few days went by fairly calmly, but Evgenia started paying closer attention to her husband. Soon she noticed something new: the phone calls. Before, Vasily would answer calls right in front of her without any secrecy. Now, whenever his phone rang, he would tense up, look at the screen, and either reject the call or step into another room to talk. On Saturday morning, they were having breakfast together when his phone rang. Vasily glanced at the screen, and his expression darkened. "Sorry, this is important," he muttered, getting up and walking into the hallway. Evgenia, without really meaning to eavesdrop, found herself listening. His voice was quiet but tense. Yes, Mom. I understand the surgery is expensive, but I need more time. No, I can't get that much money right away. Yes, I'll find it, but give me one more week. Evgenia froze, holding her coffee cup midair. Surgery? What surgery? Her mother-in-law, Klavdia Mikhailovna, was a perfectly healthy 63-year-old woman. She went to the gym regularly and even worked part-time as a babysitter. What health problems could she possibly have? When Vasily came back, Evgenia asked, "Is something wrong with your mom? I heard you talking about an operation." He looked at her in surprise. No. What are you talking about?
She's fine.
I was talking to Petrovich. His mother-in-law is in the hospital. Then why did you say Mom? She pressed. Not Mom, I said there, Vasily replied irritably. They need money. You must have misheard. Evgenia nodded, but she wasn't convinced. She was sure she had heard him say Mom. Besides, she knew Petrovich, Vasily's co-worker. He didn't have a mother-in-law, only an elderly father. Still, she didn't want to openly accuse her husband of lying. Maybe she really had misheard, though her instincts told her otherwise. The next call came on Tuesday evening. This time, Vasily answered right in the living room, apparently thinking Evgenia was busy in the kitchen. But she was just bringing dinner in and couldn't help but hear him say, No, Mom, I can't come right now. Yes, I understand it's urgent, but my hands are tied. I'll try to figure something out tomorrow. No, Genya doesn't know anything yet. Evgenia's heart skipped a beat. Genya was her. She doesn't know anything yet. About what? When he ended the call, she entered the living room with the tray. Who was that? She asked casually. A co-worker, he said without looking at her. Work stuff. Pretty late for work calls, she noted. Deadlines don't wait. He shrugged and started eating. She didn't push further, but inside she was boiling. Now she was certain he was lying. The question was, why and what was he hiding? Where did you take all our money? Then go live there. You're not living here anymore. My husband gave all our family savings to his mother, thinking I was naive and would forgive him. But oh, how wrong he was. Before we start, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you and enjoy the story. Evgenia stood at her kitchen window, watching her husband quickly get into the car. Something about the way he moved felt off. Normally, Vasily was calm and organized, but today he was in a rush, like he was late for something important. Yet, he still had an hour before work. She turned away from the window and started clearing the breakfast table. Vasily had barely touched his favorite cheese pancakes. He just sipped his coffee nervously, eyes constantly flicking to his phone. When she tried talking to him about weekend plans, his answers were short and distracted, as if his mind was somewhere else. Evgenia had noticed this change in him for weeks. Before, he would always share stories from work, discuss their plans, and talk about purchases or family matters. Lately, he gave vague answers and often came home late, blaming urgent projects. While collecting the dirty dishes, she absent-mindedly checked the pockets of his jacket before hanging it in the closet, a habit from their 15 years of marriage. Vasily always forgot little things in his pockets, tickets, receipts, or coins. Her fingers found a folded piece of paper. She opened it and froze. It was a receipt from the jewelry store Brilliant, dated yesterday. Amount: 47,000 rubles. Items: sapphire earrings and a pendant. Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't received any gifts yesterday. In fact, she couldn't even remember the last time Vasily had given her jewelry. She read the receipt several times, hoping she was mistaken. But the date and numbers were clear. 47,000 rubles, nearly half of his monthly salary. What could he have spent so much money on? Evgenia sat down at the kitchen table, still holding the receipt. Her mind was racing. Maybe he was planning a surprise? But her birthday was still 3 months away, and their anniversary was 6 months away. And why would he buy such an expensive gift without any reason? Or could it be something else? She didn't even want to think about that possibility. Vasily couldn't be cheating. They'd been together for so many years, had a strong family, and shared future plans. Still, why was he hiding such a big purchase from her? She slipped the receipt into her pocket and tried to focus on her chores, but her thoughts kept going back to it. By evening, she decided to ask him directly. Vasily came home looking tired and irritated. After dinner, he settled into his chair with a newspaper. Evgenia thought the moment was right. "Vasya," she began carefully, pulling out the receipt. "I found this in your jacket. Can you explain it?" Vasily looked up from the paper, saw the slip in her hands, and his expression changed instantly. There was tension in his face, though he tried to hide it with a forced smile. "Oh, that," he waved his hand casually. "It's a work thing, a corporate gift for my boss. Her birthday's coming up. 47,000 for a corporate gift." Evgenia asked in surprise. "Well, you know, Marina Viktorovna is a very influential woman," he said, avoiding her gaze. "A lot depends on her. Better to spend a little now than regret missed opportunities later." Evgenia nodded, but something in his tone didn't convince her. First of all, he had never spent that much on work gifts before. Second, he spoke hesitantly, still not looking her in the eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "We usually discuss big expenses." "I just forgot," Vasily shrugged, burying himself back in his newspaper. "It's nothing. No need to hold a meeting over every purchase." "Nothing?" He had just called 47,000 rubles nothing. Evgenia stayed silent, but inside, she felt a tight knot of anxiety. Something wasn't right. She just didn't know what it was yet. The next few days went by fairly calmly, but Evgenia started paying closer attention to her husband. Soon she noticed something new: the phone calls. Before, Vasily would answer calls right in front of her without any secrecy. Now, whenever his phone rang, he would tense up, look at the screen, and either reject the call or step into another room to talk. On Saturday morning, they were having breakfast together when his phone rang. Vasily glanced at the screen, and his expression darkened. "Sorry, this is important," he muttered, getting up and walking into the hallway. Evgenia, without really meaning to eavesdrop, found herself listening. His voice was quiet but tense. "Yes, Mom. I understand the surgery is expensive, but I need more time. No, I can't get that much money right away. Yes, I'll find it, but give me one more week." Evgenia froze, holding her coffee cup midair. "Surgery? What surgery?" Her mother-in-law, Klavdia Mikhailovna, was a perfectly healthy 63-year-old woman. She went to the gym regularly and even worked part-time as a babysitter. What health problems could she possibly have? When Vasily came back, Evgenia asked, "Is something wrong with your mom? I heard you talking about an operation." He looked at her in surprise. "No. What are you talking about?"
"She's fine."
"I was talking to Petrovich. His mother-in-law is in the hospital." "Then why did you say Mom?" she pressed. "Not Mom, I said there," Vasily replied irritably. "They need money. You must have misheard." Evgenia nodded, but she wasn't convinced. She was sure she had heard him say Mom. Besides, she knew Petrovich, Vasily's co-worker. He didn't have a mother-in-law, only an elderly father. Still, she didn't want to openly accuse her husband of lying. Maybe she really had misheard, though her instincts told her otherwise. The next call came on Tuesday evening. This time, Vasily answered right in the living room, apparently thinking Evgenia was busy in the kitchen. But she was just bringing dinner in and couldn't help but hear him say, "No, Mom, I can't come right now. Yes, I understand it's urgent, but my hands are tied. I'll try to figure something out tomorrow." "No, Genya doesn't know anything yet." Evgenia's heart skipped a beat. Genya was her. She doesn't know anything yet. About what? When he ended the call, she entered the living room with the tray. "Who was that?" she asked casually. "A co-worker," he said without looking at her. "Work stuff. Pretty late for work calls," she noted. "Deadlines don't wait." He shrugged and started eating. She didn't push further, but inside she was boiling. Now she was certain he was lying. The question was, why and what was he hiding? The rest of the week passed in tense silence. Evgenia tried to act normal, but she caught herself studying every gesture, every word from him. Vasily became even more withdrawn and irritable. Then, on Friday, something happened that completely confirmed her suspicions. She was looking for their marriage certificate for some paperwork at her job. Normally, all their important documents were kept in the home safe in their bedroom. Both of them knew the code, the date they first met. The moment she opened the safe, she noticed something was wrong. The documents weren't in their usual order, and more importantly, the folder with their banking papers was gone. That folder contained all the documents for their joint deposit account, the one with 400,000 rubles they had been saving for 15 years to buy their own house. Evgenia searched the entire safe again. Nothing. Her heartbeat quickened. Maybe Vasily had just moved them somewhere else?
But why?
She searched the whole apartment, every folder, every drawer, but the banking documents were nowhere to be found. There was nothing left to do but wait for Vasily to come home and ask him directly. He returned late that night, around 10 p.m. He looked exhausted, and when Evgenia asked him directly about the missing documents, he answered with irritation. "Yeah, I took them to the bank," he said sharply. "I was renewing the deposit and handling some paperwork. I'll bring them back tomorrow or the next day." "Why didn't you tell me?" Evgenia asked. "I spent all day looking for them. I thought we'd lost them." "I forgot." Vasily waved his hand dismissively. "I have a lot on my plate. I can't check with you about every single step I take." His tone was unusually harsh. Even when he was upset in the past, Vasily had never spoken to her like that. Evgenia stayed silent, but decided that the next day she would go to the bank herself to find out the truth. Saturday morning was sunny, and Vasily left early, saying he was meeting friends. Taking advantage of his absence, Evgenia went straight to the bank. The manager, a young woman with a friendly smile, listened carefully as Evgenia asked about their deposit. "I'm sorry, but this account was closed 3 days ago," the woman said, checking the computer. The funds were withdrawn in full by one of the account holders. Evgenia felt the ground disappear under her feet. "Closed? Are you sure?" "My husband said he was renewing the deposit." "No, I'm sorry." The manager double-checked the records. "It was closed on Tuesday at 11 a.m. The account holder withdrew the full amount, 400,000 rubles. Their entire savings. The money they had been putting aside for years to buy their own home, saving on everything, turning down luxuries, skipping expensive purchases." "Can you tell me who closed the account?" Evgenia asked, her voice trembling. "Vasily Petrovich Krasnov," the manager replied. "Your husband, I assume?" Evgenia nodded and walked out of the bank on shaky legs. So Vasily had withdrawn all the money and lied about it.
But why?
Where had the 400,000 rubles gone? She sat in the car but didn't rush home. She needed time to think. The expensive jewelry, the strange phone calls, the missing money, it was all starting to form a troubling picture. Her mind raced through different possibilities. Maybe her husband really did have problems at work and took the money to handle some urgent matter. Or maybe he was buying gifts for a lover. Or perhaps he had gambled it away or gotten into debt. Each scenario was worse than the last, but the worst part was that Vasily had lied to her. 15 years of trust and honesty, and now she saw he was capable of keeping huge secrets. She decided not to confront him right away. She needed to find out exactly where the money went, and that would take time and caution. When she got home, Vasily still wasn't there. Evgenia tried to distract herself with housework, but her mind kept going back to what she had learned that morning. 400,000 rubles gone.
Just like that.
Their dream of owning a home had shattered in a single moment. Vasily returned in the evening in a good mood, but the moment he saw her serious face, he grew alert. "Something wrong?" he asked. "You promised to bring the documents from the bank," Evgenia said calmly. "Where are they?" "Oh, right." Vasily scratched his head. "I'll bring them tomorrow. They're still finishing the paperwork." "Vasily," she said, looking straight into his eyes, "I went to the bank today. They told me our deposit was closed 3 days ago." His face changed instantly. He opened his mouth, closed it, then forced a nervous smile. "Yeah, I closed it," he admitted. "I wanted to surprise you. I moved the money to another bank with a better interest rate." The paperwork is still in progress. Which bank? Evgenia asked. Alpha Bank, he replied after a pause. I know someone there. They offered a good deal. And how long will that take? A week, maybe 2. You know how bureaucracy is, endless paperwork. Evgenia nodded, but inside, she was now certain. He was lying. He spoke hesitantly, avoided her gaze, and most of all, he had never made such big financial decisions without her before. Next time, tell me before you move money around, she said. I was worried something had happened. Of course, Vasily agreed quickly. I just wanted to surprise you with the result. The rest of the evening passed in tense silence. Vasily tried to act normal, but Evgenia could see he was nervous. Meanwhile, she was already making plans to uncover the truth. The next morning, Sunday, Vasily announced he was going out again, meeting with colleagues, he said. Evgenia didn't try to stop him from leaving. She needed time to think things through and decide what to do next. One thing was clear, trust between them was broken. This wasn't the first time Vasily had lied to her. And it wasn't about small things. This time it was something serious. 400,000 rubles. That was their future, their dreams, the result of many years of hard work together. Evgenia knew difficult conversations were coming, and maybe some unpleasant truths. But she wasn't going to back down. She had the right to know the truth about her own life. Just then, her husband's phone, left on the kitchen table, buzzed with a new message. Without meaning to, she glanced at the screen and saw. Vasenka, don't worry. I understand how hard it is for you to hide this from Genya, but soon everything will be fine. Her heart skipped a beat. So her mother-in-law knew Vasily was hiding something from her. And from the tone of the message, it seemed Klavdia Mikhailovna was fully aware of her son's secrets. Evgenia stepped away from the phone, but the message stuck in her mind. So, there was some kind of plot against her? Her husband and his mother were making plans behind her back. When Vasily came home, she didn't let on that she had seen the message. But inside, she was boiling with anger. How dare they make decisions about her life without her knowing? Later that evening, while they were watching TV, Vasily's phone rang. He quickly declined the call, but Evgenia caught a glimpse of the screen. It was his mother. Why didn't you answer? She asked. Maybe it's something important. No, she just misses me, Vasily shrugged. I'll call her back later. But he never did. That only convinced Evgenia even more. Her husband and his mother were hiding something. And it had to do with the missing money. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her mind kept replaying the events of the last few weeks. Strange purchases, mysterious phone calls, the missing money, and now, the message from her mother-in-law. It all fit together into a picture of lies and betrayal. Tomorrow she decided she would act. She had to find out the truth, no matter what it cost. She was ready for the possibility that what she learned about her husband wouldn't be pleasant. But she refused to live in the dark or be manipulated anymore. 15 years of honest marriage deserved honest answers to all questions. And she would get those answers, even if they shattered her view of her family and marriage. Monday began with Vasily leaving for work earlier than usual, muttering something about an important meeting. Evgenia watched him from the window and made up her mind. Today, she would start her own investigation. The first step, visit her mother-in-law. She wouldn't confront her directly. She would just check in to see how Klavdia Mikhailovna was doing. Maybe a conversation would reveal something. Klavdia lived in an old neighborhood, in a gray 5-story apartment block where the flats were small and the elevator barely worked. Evgenia hadn't visited her in over a month. They usually met only at family celebrations, or Klavdia came to their place. Climbing the familiar stairs, Evgenia thought about how to start the conversation. Maybe ask about her health first, or carefully offer financial help, just to see her reaction. On the 4th floor, she ran into her mother-in-law's neighbor, Galina Ivanovna, a plump, middle-aged woman who always knew everyone's business. Oh, Evgenia Valentinovna. Galina lit up. What a nice surprise. Are you going to see Klavdia? Yes, I thought I'd visit, Evgenia smiled. Haven't seen her in a while. Oh, But she doesn't live here anymore, Galina said. She moved to a new apartment in the city center about a month ago. Can you believe what a caring son she has? Evgenia's heart skipped. She moved, she repeated. I didn't know. Really? I thought you and Vasily Petrovich decided together to help her. Galina looked surprised. Klavdia was so proud, telling everyone that you two bought her a new 3-room apartment in the center. And you even gave her a little car. So cute. Last week you even sent her to a resort in Crimea. She said it was finally time for her to live for herself. Evgenia's head was spinning. A new apartment, a car, a trip to a resort, that's hundreds of thousands of rubles. And when had she and Vasily made these decisions? Do you happen to know the address of her new place? She asked, trying to keep her voice calm. Of course, Lenina Street, Building 23, Apartment 45. It's in that new complex with a concierge and underground parking. She says she feels like a queen there. Evgenia thanked Galina and hurried downstairs. Her thoughts were racing. So Vasily had bought his mother an apartment, a car, and sent her to a resort, and all without telling her. With what money? Could it really be their shared savings? When she reached the city center, it wasn't hard to find the building. A brand new, business-class complex with a concierge desk and a beautifully maintained courtyard. Apartments here cost at least 8 million rubles. Inside the lobby, she approached the young man at the concierge desk. I'm here to see Klavdia Mikhailovna Krasnova, Evgenia said. Sorry, but Mrs. Krasnova is on vacation, the concierge said politely. She'll be back in a week. Has she been living here long? Evgenia asked. About a month. Very nice lady. She often thanks us for the good service. Says her son and daughter-in-law really went all out and created a paradise for her. Evgenia nodded and walked outside. So it was true. Her mother-in-law really was living in an expensive apartment that supposedly she and Vasily had bought for her. But Evgenia herself had known nothing about it. She needed to speak with Klavdia Mikhailovna right away. She dialed her number. Genya, dear, her mother-in-law answered cheerfully. How are you? How's Vasily? Klavdia Mikhailovna, Evgenia began carefully. I went to your home today, and your neighbor told me you had moved. Oh yes, the older woman laughed. I forgot to tell you, but it was meant to be a surprise. Vasily asked me not to say anything yet. You two gave me such beauty. I still can't believe I live in such luxury. And when will you be back? Evgenia asked. In a week. Imagine, Genya, it's my first time ever staying in a hotel like this. Spa treatments, massages, a seawater pool. I feel like a queen. Thank you so much for all this care. Evgenia ended the call and sat down on a bench in the nearest park. So Vasily really had bought his mother an expensive apartment and sent her to a resort, and did it in both their names, even though she had no idea. But the bigger question was, with what money? Their family savings were 400,000 rubles, enough only for a down payment. Where did the rest come from? She decided to go home and look for documents that could explain things. Maybe Vasily had taken out a loan or sold something valuable. At home, she searched through all her husband's drawers and folders. No loan agreements. No paperwork about large purchases. But in one folder, she found an income statement that shocked her even more. According to it, issued just a month ago, Vasily's salary was 120,000 rubles per month. But he had always told her it was 90,000. Where did that extra 30,000 go? The document looked completely official. Stamps, signatures, everything. That meant Vasily had been hiding part of his salary.
But why?
Then it hit her. If he had been putting away 30,000 every month for several years, that could be the money he used for the apartment. But why hide it from his wife and spend it all on gifts for his mother? Evgenia decided to call Vasily's workplace to confirm his salary. She knew the accounting department's number. Accounting. Marina speaking, came a familiar voice. Hello, Marina, it's Evgenia, Vasily Krasny's wife. Could you tell me his salary? I need it for the bank. We're applying for a loan. Evgenia Valentinovna. Marina sounded surprised. Don't you know? Vasily Petrovich doesn't work here anymore. The world tilted around Evgenia. What do you mean he doesn't work here? She whispered. He quit back in May. He's been gone for 6 months. You didn't know? Evgenia couldn't answer. The phone slipped from her hands. For 6 months, Vasily had been leaving the house every morning pretending to go to work. For 6 months, he had been bringing home what he claimed was his salary. Now she realized they had been living off their savings. The same 400,000 rubles she had spent 15 years saving for a house. He had slowly spent it down and given the rest to his mother for her new apartment. Evgenia sank to the floor in the hallway. Her legs wouldn't hold her. So for half a year, their whole life had been built on lies. Vasily wasn't working, wasn't earning, and had been living entirely off their joint savings. Not only that, he had bought his mother an apartment worth millions, plus a car, plus a resort trip. Where did he get the rest of the money? Did he borrow it? Sell something? Evgenia struggled to her feet and went to the kitchen for a glass of water, trying to gather her thoughts. This was worse than she imagined. Vasily had lost his job and hidden it from her. He had drained their savings while pretending to bring home a salary. Then he gave the last of it to his mother. And all that time, he'd been acting like the perfect husband and devoted son, when in reality, he was eating away their future. She thought back, were there signs he wasn't working? Yes, over the last months, he had been more irritable, disappearing for hours, refusing to talk about work. He'd stopped inviting colleagues over, stopped mentioning office events. She'd blamed stress.
But now she knew there was no job. The phone rang.
It was Vasily. Hi, dear. His voice was as casual as ever.
How are you?
I'll be late today. The meeting is running long. Vasily, said Evgenia, trying to keep her voice calm. And exactly where is this meeting of yours? What do you mean, where? At work, of course, in the conference room.
I see.
And when do you think you'll be done? Around 9, probably. Don't wait with dinner. I'll grab something at a cafe. Evgenia hung up the phone. He was still lying, even now, when she already knew the truth. A meeting, a conference room, staying late at work, all lies. Lies from a man who had been unemployed for 6 months. Where did he really spend his days? What did he do from morning till night? And more importantly, where did he get the money to buy his mother an apartment when their savings were nowhere near enough for that? Evgenia decided to investigate herself. If Vasily could lie, then she could follow him. Tomorrow morning, she would find out exactly where her husband went. That night, she couldn't sleep. Vasily came home late, just like he said he would, and over dinner told her about the difficult meeting and how tired he was from work. Every word scraped against her ears. She now knew it was all a lie. In the morning, she stuck to her plan. She waited until Vasily got ready for work, as usual, then followed him half an hour later. She knew the route he normally took to his old office. To her surprise, he really did head in that direction, but he drove right past the building and stopped at a shopping mall instead. He parked, went inside, and she waited a few minutes before following him. The mall was crowded, making it easy for her to blend in. Vasily was sitting in a cafe on the second floor, drinking coffee and reading a newspaper. He looked completely relaxed, like someone with all the free time in the world and nothing to worry about. From behind a column, Evgenia watched. For about an hour, he just sat there. Then he walked through a few stores, bought something, and returned to the cafe. This was how he spent his workday. Only someone with no job could do that. Around noon, Vasily left the mall and drove to another part of the city. Evgenia carefully followed, keeping her distance. He stopped at a small office building and went inside. The first floor had several companies, but it was unclear which one he visited. She waited in the car for almost 2 hours. Finally, Vasily came out, got into his car, and drove home. His workday was over. At home, he once again told her about the hard day, the problems at work, and how exhausted he was. More lies. The next day, Evgenia decided to find out what office he had visited. She waited for him to leave, then went to the same address. Inside the building were an insurance company, an accounting service, a law office, and a loan broker. The loan broker caught her attention. She walked in, pretending to be a potential client. "Welcome to Manager." A young woman greeted her. "How can I help you?" I'm interested in large loans, Evgenia said. My husband, Vasily was here for a consultation yesterday. Oh, yes, the woman brightened. Vasily Petrovich is one of our regular clients. Very responsible, always pays on time. Evgenia's heart skipped a beat. And what's the size of his loan? She asked carefully. I can't give exact figures, the woman replied, but it's over 5 million rubles. A large loan secured by real estate. 5 million rubles. Evgenia felt dizzy. And what property did he put up as collateral? She whispered. The apartment, as far as I remember. But you'd better confirm with Vasily Petrovich himself. You're his wife. I'm sure he'll tell you everything. Evgenia nodded and left the office on shaky legs. Vasily had mortgaged their apartment and taken a 5 million ruble loan. With that money, he bought his mother a home, a car, paid for a vacation, and she knew nothing about it. Worse, their own apartment now belonged to the bank as collateral. If Vasily stopped paying, they could lose their home. Sitting in her car, Evgenia tried to collect her thoughts. The situation was disastrous. Her husband had not only lost his job and spent their savings, but had also mortgaged their apartment to give his mother a luxurious life, all while lying to her and pretending to be a hard-working, caring husband. That evening, Vasily came home and started talking again about work projects. Evgenia listened, feeling her anger grow. How could he lie so brazenly while looking her in the eye? Vasily, she interrupted his story about some difficult project. Is it true you haven't worked for 6 months? Vasily's face instantly went pale. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. It's true, isn't it? You pawned our apartment and took out a loan for 5 million rubles, Evgenia continued. Vasily sank into a chair, realizing his lie had been exposed. Evgenia, I can explain everything, he mumbled. Go ahead, explain, Evgenia said coldly. I'd really like to hear your explanation. Vasily nervously licked his lips. I lost my job in May. There were layoffs. I got caught in them. I didn't want to upset you. I thought I'd find a new job quickly. But for 6 months, I couldn't. You know how it is now. There's a crisis, not many jobs, and I'm already 45. Not young. They prefer hiring younger people. And where did you get money for us to live on? Evgenia asked. From our savings. Just a little at a time. I thought I'd find a job soon and put it all back. 400,000 rubles is a little at a time, she shot back. Vasily lowered his head, guilty. And the apartment for your mother. What did you buy that with? She continued her interrogation. You see, my mom had problems. In her old apartment, the pipes burst. The neighbors downstairs demanded she pay for repairs. Plus, her health started to go downhill. I couldn't leave her in trouble, so I pawned our apartment to help her. I thought I'd find a job, pay the loan, and it would all be fine. She deserves a good life. She's done so much for me. Evgenia stared at her husband in growing disbelief. He had lost his job, spent all their savings, pawned their apartment, taken a huge loan, and all of it for his mother. And he'd lied to his wife for 6 months. How much longer were you planning to keep lying to me? She asked. I wanted to find a job first, then tell you. Honestly, Evgenia, I didn't want to deceive you. But you were deceiving me. Every day, every minute. Telling me about a job you didn't have, a salary you didn't earn, meetings and projects that didn't exist. Vasily stayed silent, knowing there was no way to justify himself. And if I hadn't found out, how long would this have gone on? Evgenia pressed. I don't know, he admitted. I hoped I'd find a job before you suspected anything. And then what? You'd tell me the truth. Vasily stayed silent again, and Evgenia understood. No, he wouldn't. He would have kept lying, pretending to be a successful employee. How much is the monthly payment on this loan? She asked. About 80,000 rubles. Evgenia couldn't believe her ears. And how exactly were you planning to pay that? I thought I'd get a good job. You thought, she shouted. And if you don't? What then? Do we get kicked out of our own apartment? They won't kick us out. I'll get a job. I promise I will. But Evgenia no longer believed a word. 6 months he'd been looking and found nothing, while the debt kept piling up. "Show me the loan agreement," she demanded. Vasily reluctantly took a folder from the drawer and handed it to her. Evgenia read through it and was horrified. The interest rate was 20% per year. The repayment term, 15 years. "With these terms, we'll pay the bank over 15 million rubles. Do you even understand what you signed?" she asked. "Well, maybe the interest will go down," he muttered. "Or maybe it won't. Or maybe it will even go up," she shot back. She kept reading and found another nasty surprise. "It says here that if we miss payments for more than 3 months, the bank can demand full repayment of the entire debt. And if we can't pay, the apartment gets sold at auction." Vasily nodded, still not fully grasping the seriousness of the situation. "So if you don't find a job, or if you get a low-paying one, we lose the apartment," Evgenia concluded. "We won't lose it. I'll find a good job," Vasily repeated stubbornly. "In 6 months you've found nothing. What's changed?" "What's changed is that now I have to find one. If I don't, we'll end up on the street." "Great future we've got," Evgenia said bitterly, setting the papers aside. This man had destroyed their financial stability for the sake of his mother, spent all their savings, pawned their apartment, taken a massive loan, and lied to his wife for half a year. Every day, he'd leave the house pretending to go to work, but really, he was wandering around malls or visiting loan brokers. "Does your mother know you lost your job?" Evgenia asked. Vasily nodded. "And she knows the apartment was bought with borrowed money?" "Yes. And she's fine with the fact that, for her comfortable life, we might end up homeless? She says I'm a good son for taking care of her. That a son should help his mother." Evgenia shook her head. So, her mother-in-law had known about the whole lie from the start and approved of it. "That's why you had all those secret conversations with her," Evgenia realized. "And the text message about how I still don't know." Vasily lowered his eyes in guilt. "We thought it was better not to tell you yet, so you wouldn't get upset." "Not upset," Evgenia exploded. "You thought I had no right to know our apartment was pawned and we were in debt for 15 years? I was going to tell you once I found a job. And if you never did, you'd just stay quiet until bailiffs came to take the apartment." Vasily didn't answer, but Evgenia already knew. That's exactly what he would have done. He would have kept lying until the very end. "And how much have you already paid on the loan?" she asked. "So far, only the first month's interest. About 40,000 rubles. I haven't made any payments toward the main debt yet. I thought I'd find a job first, then start paying it off." Evgenia grabbed her head in frustration. "So the debt hasn't gone down at all. It's only growing because of the interest? Do you realize that every single day we delay makes the debt bigger?" "I understand, but I don't have the money right now." "And where do you expect to get 80,000 rubles a month?" "I'll find a good job and start earning a lot," he replied. Her husband's naivety was unbelievable. 45 years old, unemployed for 6 months, and he was still hoping for a miracle. "And what if you don't find one?" Evgenia asked. "Or you get a job, but the salary is less than 80,000? "I'll find one with a good salary. I'm sure I will. And until you do, we have to pay the bank money every month, money we don't even have." "Well, maybe we can borrow from relatives." "From which relatives?" Evgenia asked, shocked. "Your mother, who's now living in luxury. Or my retired parents, who can barely make ends meet themselves." Vasily went silent again, realizing how absurd his suggestion was. "Or, do you expect me to work 2 jobs just to pay off the debt for your mother's apartment?" she continued. "No, of course not. I'll figure something out myself." "And what exactly is your plan?" Evgenia cut him off. "In 6 months, you haven't found even a low-paying job. Now you suddenly need a salary of at least 100,000 rubles just to cover the loan and survive." Vasily looked lost, as if he still didn't understand how serious the situation was. "Genya, what do we do now?" he asked helplessly. "We can't turn back time."
Exactly.
"We can't turn back time," Evgenia agreed. "We can't get our savings back. We can't cancel the loan. And we can't take back the gifts you gave your mother. Maybe we could sell my mom's apartment?" Vasily suggested hesitantly. And do you think she'd agree? Evgenia asked. You really think your mother would go back to a shabby communal flat after living in luxury? Vasily lowered his eyes. Probably not.
Right.
And the apartment is legally hers. You can't force her to sell it. And she already knows about your work problems. She's known for 6 months. Did she offer to help? Did she give anything back?
No.
She's happily enjoying her resort life while you're breaking your head over how to pay the loan. Vasily sat with his head down. Maybe only now was he starting to realize what kind of hole he'd dragged the family into. Evgenia stood up and began pacing the room. They needed to make a decision. This was critical. Waiting for Vasily to land some dream job was not an option. How much time do we have before the bank starts demanding full repayment? She asked. 3 months without payment, Vasily replied. So we have 2 months left. And you think you'll find a job with a 100,000 salary in 2 months? I'll try. And if you don't? I don't know, he admitted. Evgenia realized she couldn't rely on him. She'd have to find a way out herself. Show me all the loan documents, she demanded. And the income statements you gave to the bank. Reluctantly, Vasily pulled out a folder. Evgenia carefully studied every paper. The income statement showed 120,000 rubles a month, but she knew he'd only earned 90,000 before losing his job. This is fake, isn't it? She asked. Not exactly fake, Vasily mumbled. Just embellished. There are companies that make these kinds of statements with higher incomes. So, you knowingly gave the bank false information? Vasily nodded. Without it, they wouldn't have approved the loan. I needed the money for Mom. Evgenia shook her head. Fraud. Lying to the bank. The list of her husband's mistakes just kept growing. And what if the bank checks and finds out it's fake? She asked. They probably won't. They have lots of clients. And if they do check? You know you could go to jail for loan fraud, right? Vasily's face went pale. I didn't think about that. Of course you didn't. You never think, except about making your mom happy, she said bitterly. Evgenia set the papers aside and looked at him. This man was completely irresponsible. Just to please his mother, he had destroyed their family's life. And where exactly do you spend your days when you pretend to go to work? She asked. It depends, Vasily said vaguely. Sometimes at shopping malls, sometimes at friends' places, sometimes in internet cafes, sending out resumes. For 6 months, Vasily didn't get a single real job offer. Well, actually I got some, he admitted, but the pay was too small. Around 450,000. With that money, we couldn't pay off the loan completely, Evgenia replied, but at least we could cover part of the payments and figure out the rest somehow. What's the point of working for peanuts? Vasily waved his hand. Better to wait for something decent. Evgenia clenched her teeth. While her husband kept looking for this decent job, their debts were growing and the situation was getting worse by the day. What did your mother say when you told her about our financial problems? Evgenia asked. She said I was a good son for taking care of her, that a real son should put his mother's needs above his own and above his wife's too. Evgenia gave a bitter smile. So, her mother-in-law really believed a good wife should calmly accept losing all their savings and possibly even their home, just so she could live comfortably. And what does she plan to do when she finds out we might lose the apartment because we can't pay the loan? Evgenia pressed. I don't know, we haven't talked about that, Vasily admitted honestly. Well, talk to her. Find out if she's willing to return at least some of the gifts so we can pay off the debt. Vasily nodded uncertainly, but from his face, Evgenia could tell he wouldn't even try. He was too scared of upsetting his dear mother, of disturbing her peaceful life. You know what? Evgenia said, standing up. I'll talk to her myself. I want to see just how much she understands about our situation. No, don't, Vasily said quickly, almost in panic. Why upset her? I'll handle it. Handle it. Evgenia snapped. You've been handling it for 6 months with no job. In 2 more months, we'll be kicked out of our apartment. What exactly can you handle? I'll find a job and start paying the loan, he said stubbornly. And if you don't find one that pays enough? Then what? Vasily stayed silent. He had no answer. Exactly, Evgenia said coldly. You have no plan except blind hope for a miracle. I'm done waiting for miracles. She headed for the door. Where are you going? Vasily asked nervously. To your mother. I'm going to find out if she's ready to take responsibility for the consequences of her gifts. Evgenia, please don't. She's on vacation. Why ruin it for her? She needs to know the truth, Evgenia said firmly. It's time for all of us to stop living in a fantasy world. Vasily tried to argue, but Evgenia was already out of the room. Inside, she felt her anger boiling over. For months, she had been living in the dark, unaware of the disaster heading their way. Her husband and mother-in-law clearly thought she was naive enough to accept anything without question. But they were very, very wrong. She wasn't going to sit quietly while her life fell apart. If Vasily couldn't solve the problems he'd created, she would. And the first step was finding out if his mother was willing to give up even a little of her luxury, a luxury paid for with the destruction of her son's family. The time for pretending they were a happy family was over. It was time to face the truth, no matter how bitter it was. The next morning, Evgenia woke up with a clear plan. During the night, she had thought it over and knew she couldn't go on like this. Vasily had shown himself to be an irresponsible liar, willing to destroy their family for his mother's whims. When Vasily left for his endless job hunt, Evgenia decided to use his absence to speak directly to her mother-in-law. Claudia Mikhailovna had come back from her vacation just the night before. Evgenia went to the address a neighbor had given her. The new apartment was even more luxurious than she had imagined, a spacious lobby with marble finishes, a uniformed concierge, silent elevators. The apartment was on the 8th floor with a view of the park. Evgenia rang the doorbell, and a few minutes later, Claudia appeared, tanned, looking younger, and full of energy. Evgenia, she exclaimed happily. What a surprise. Come in, take a look at my new place. Evgenia stepped into a wide hallway with expensive wood trim. The apartment was filled with brand new furniture, expensive vases, and paintings everywhere. How do you like it? Claudia asked proudly as she led her into the living room. Vasily, you really went all out for me here, his mother said with a satisfied smile. I'm living like a real lady now. The living room was huge and filled with luxury, an enormous TV, a leather couch, Persian rugs, and a sparkling crystal chandelier. It all looked like it cost at least 2 million rubles. It's beautiful, Evgenia agreed as she sat down in an armchair. But, Claudia Mikhailovna, I need to have a serious talk with you. What about, dear? Her mother-in-law asked, sipping coffee from an expensive porcelain cup. About where the money for all this came from, Evgenia said directly. Claudia's face tensed slightly. Well, where else? Vasily gave it to me. You two decided to make this old lady happy, right? Let's be honest, Evgenia said firmly. I know Vasily's been unemployed for 6 months. I know he spent all our family savings and even took out a 5 million ruble loan by putting up our apartment as collateral. And I know you're aware of this. Her mother-in-law calmly set her cup down. Yes, he told me he's having a hard time with work right now. But that's not forever. He'll find a good job and earn well again. And until then, we have to pay 80,000 rubles a month for the loan that was used to buy your gifts, Evgenia said. If we don't, we'll lose our apartment. Claudia just shrugged. Vasily will think of something. He's a smart boy. He's always gotten out of difficult situations. And if he doesn't? Evgenia asked. Then you can live with me, her mother-in-law replied confidently. This place is big enough for everyone. Evgenia stared at her, shocked at how little she seemed to understand the seriousness of the situation. Claudia Mikhailovna, have you considered helping us? Maybe selling this apartment and moving back to your old one? Or at least selling your car? Her mother-in-law's expression instantly changed. Sell it? What for? These are gifts. Vasily told me himself they were from the heart, so I could live beautifully. With money he doesn't have, Evgenia reminded her. He'll earn it. Claudia waved her hand dismissively. He's not a child. He'll figure it out. And I didn't ask him to go into debt. But you didn't refuse the gifts either, Evgenia pointed out. Why should I refuse them? Her mother-in-law said, surprised. A son should want good things for his mother. That's his duty. Evgenia realized that to her mother-in-law, her son's sacrifices were completely normal, and she had no plans to give up her comfort. All right, Evgenia said. And if Vasily asks you to return some of the gifts to help pay off the debts? Why would I do that? Klavdia frowned. He should just find a better job. Or you could get a side job. A wife should also contribute to the family budget. Evgenia clenched her teeth. So her mother-in-law thought she should work extra just to keep this luxury going. Klavdia Mikhailovna, do you know Vasily gave the bank fake proof of income? So what? The older woman shrugged. Everyone does it. The banks are the ones charging such high interest. They're asking for it. You know that's fraud, right? He could go to prison for that. For a second, her mother-in-law's face faltered, but she quickly recovered. No one's going to jail over something so silly. The important thing is to keep making the payments. And if we can't, we will. Vasily will find a way. Evgenia realized there was no point continuing. Her mother-in-law lived in a fantasy where her son was a magician who could solve everything, while she simply enjoyed the benefits. You know what, Klavdia Mikhailovna? Evgenia said, standing up. I hope you're comfortable in all this luxury when your son ends up on the street. That won't happen, the older woman said firmly. And stop trying to scare me. You should focus on finding a job instead of coming here to make a scene. Evgenia left the apartment knowing she could never expect help or understanding from her. This woman was so selfish, she would watch her own son destroy his life, just to keep her comfort. At home, Vasily was waiting anxiously. Well, did you talk to Mom? I did, Evgenia said coldly. She thinks this is our problem, not hers. And she's not giving up any of the gifts. Vasily's face fell. That can't be. Mom's a reasonable woman. Oh, she understands, Evgenia said. She understands perfectly well that she's living well at our expense, and she wants it to stay that way. But I did all this for her. Vasily protested. I worked my fingers to the bone, so she could live beautifully. Exactly. And now she thinks it's just the way things should be. Vasily slumped into a chair, his head down. What do we do now? And what did you think before, when you spent our money and took on all this debt? Evgenia asked. I thought I'd find a good job. And if you don't, I will. Vasily shouted. I'll find something for sure. But Eugenia could tell he didn't even believe his own words. The next day, something happened that shattered the last bit of her illusions. Vasily got a call from a loan broker. Yes, I understand, he said into the phone, growing paler by the second. Yes, I'll try. Okay, I'll come tomorrow. When he hung up, he turned to his wife. Problems? Eugenia asked. The bank wants proof of income. They want me to bring a letter from my job. And you don't have a job? Exactly. If I don't bring a letter, they might change the terms of the loan or demand early repayment. Eugenia shook her head. Lies always come out eventually. What are you going to do? She asked. I don't know, Vasily admitted honestly. Maybe I could ask someone to give me a fake job on paper. So, lying again? What else can I do? Eugenia stared at him for a long moment. Even in a crisis, he refused to admit his mistakes or solve problems honestly. Vasya, she said quietly. Is there anything else you haven't told me? Vasily twitched. Like what? Oh, debts, for example. Or other expenses. No, there's nothing else, he replied quickly. But from the look on his face, Eugenia knew there was, and it was probably serious. Vasya, I'm asking you one last time. Is there anything else you're hiding? Vasily paused, then sighed heavily. There are some small debts on my credit cards. How much? Well, in total. Eugenia felt the floor drop from under her feet. 200,000 rubles, he said quietly. When I lost my job, we still had to live somehow. So I used the cards. And what exactly did you spend it on? On living expenses, food, gas. And sometimes I helped my mom. That was before we bought the apartment. Eugenia closed her eyes. So now, on top of the spent savings and the 5 million ruble mortgage, they also had 200,000 in credit card debt. How much do you have to pay on the cards every month? She asked. Minimum payments are about 15,000, but it's better to pay more. Otherwise, the interest piles up. So in total, we need to pay 80,000 for the main loan plus 15,000 for the cards, 95,000 rubles every month. Vasily nodded, understanding how bad it was. And we still have to live on something, Evgenia added. Utilities, food, gas, that's at least another 30,000. That means we need to make at least 125,000 rubles a month, Vasily calculated. And in the last 6 months of job hunting, have you found even one position that pays that much? Vasily shook his head. The most they offer is 45,000. So, even if you find a job, it's not enough to cover the debts. I'll find something better, he said stubbornly. You haven't in 6 months, and now suddenly you will? I'll try harder. Evgenia realized he was living in a fantasy, still hoping for some miracle to fix everything. That evening, the final straw came. A notification from the bank popped up, a fine for a late payment on one of the credit cards. You told me you were paying them, Evgenia protested. I did, but there wasn't enough for all the cards, Vasily said guiltily. I paid 2, but not the 3rd. Why didn't you tell me? I thought I'd find the money and catch up. Where would you find it? You have no income. I was hoping to sell something. What exactly? Vasily stayed silent. What were you going to sell? Evgenia pressed. Your jewelry, he admitted quietly. Evgenia stared at him in shock. My jewelry? Without even telling me? Well, you rarely wear it. It's my property, she shouted. You have no right to sell it. I haven't sold it yet. I just thought about it. And what else were you thinking of selling? My car? My clothes? Vasily lowered his head and Evgenia knew. Yes, he'd thought about that too. So you were ready to sell everything I own to pay off debts you made for your mother? She said slowly. Evgenia, what else could I do? There's no money. Have you even tried looking for a job? Even a low-paying one? I have, but the salaries are too small. A small salary is better than no salary at all. But you can't pay off big debts with a small salary. At least she could stop new problems from piling up. They sat across the table, looking at each other, and suddenly, Evgenia realized this man was no longer her husband. He was a stranger who had been lying to her for 6 months, spending their shared money, sinking them into huge debts, and now is ready to sell her things. Vasya, she said quietly, I can't do this anymore. What do you mean? He asked nervously. I can't live with someone who keeps lying to me. I can't trust a man who's ready to sell my things behind my back. I can't build a future with someone who destroyed our present just to please his mother. Vasily went pale. Evgenia, what are you saying? I did everything for the family. For the family, she gave a bitter laugh. You spent all our savings on gifts for your mother. You mortgaged our apartment, got us into debts we can't pay back. And you call that caring for the family? But my mom is also family, he said weakly. Your mom is your family, sure. And me? Apparently, I'm nobody. My opinion doesn't matter. My plans get destroyed. My property can be sold off without asking me. Meanwhile, your mother lives like a queen. Don't say that, Vasily pleaded. You're the most precious person to me. If that were true, you wouldn't make huge decisions without me. You wouldn't spend our shared money on things I don't agree with. But I just wanted what's best. For who, Vasya? Your mother, she snapped. And for me? What about what's best for me? Vasily stayed silent. He had no argument left. You know what, Vasya? Evgenia said, pushing her chair back. Wherever you took all our money, that's where you should go. You don't live here anymore. Vasily jumped up. Evgenia, what are you doing? What I should have done a long time ago. You gave all our savings to your mother thinking I was naive and would forgive you. But you were very, very wrong. But where will I go? He asked helplessly. To your beloved mother, the one you destroyed our marriage for. Let her take care of you in her fancy apartment. Evgenia, wait. I'll fix it. I'll get a job. I'll pay off the loans. It's too late, Vasya. I don't believe a word you say anymore. Evgenia walked to the bedroom, took out his suitcase from the closet. What are you doing? He followed her, panicked. Packing your things. Tomorrow, I'm filing for divorce. Genya, please, at least give me time to fix it. How much time? A month? A year? 5 years. She kept folding his clothes. I already spent 15 years of my life on this marriage. And what did I get in return? Lies, debt, and the risk of ending up on the street. I'll find the money. I'll return everything. From where? She turned to him. You don't have a job, you have no income, only debts. And your mother clearly isn't going to help. I'll sell the car, borrow from friends. The car's worth maybe 1.3 million. That'll cover the credit card debt, but you still have a 5 million loan left. Who's going to lend you that kind of money? Vasily realized he had no answer. Genya, please, give me one more chance, he begged. I already gave you a chance when I believed your story about the jewelry store receipt. I gave you a chance when I ignored those strange phone calls. I gave you a chance when I trusted your explanation about the deposit extension. And you used my trust to lie to me even more. But I love you, he whispered. Love, she gave a bitter smile. A person who loves doesn't lie, doesn't spend shared money without asking, and doesn't sell his wife's things behind her back. She zipped the suitcase and placed it by the door. Take your things and go. Genya, I'm begging you. Vasily actually dropped to his knees. Get up, she said coldly. Don't humiliate yourself. My decision is final. But I have no money. Then go to your mother. Let her support you, since you've done so much for her. What about the loans? The apartments in both our names. Not my problem. You took those loans without my knowledge. You deal with them. I'll go to court and prove they were taken with fake documents and without my consent. Vasily's face turned even paler. And if the bank sues me, that's your problem. You should have thought about that before signing. She took a suitcase and put it in the hallway. What about my car? He asked. Sell it. At least you'll have some cash to survive for a while. And after that? After that, find a job, any job. Live on your salary like millions of people do. Vasily finally realized there was no convincing her. But Genya, we've been together for 15 years. Yes, and I thought I knew you. Turns out, I was living with a stranger who's capable of lies and betrayal. I never betrayed you, he protested. Really? Spending all our money on your mother without asking me isn't betrayal? Mortgaging our apartment without my consent isn't betrayal? Lying about your job for half a year isn't betrayal. He opened his mouth but said nothing. Go to your mother, Evgenia repeated. And don't come back. Tomorrow, I'm changing the locks. She closed the door, leaving him in the hallway with his suitcase. Half an hour later, she heard the building's front door slam. Vasily was gone. The next few days were busy. Evgenia filed for divorce, spoke to a lawyer about the loan, and changed the locks. Vasily called every day, begging to meet, promising to fix everything. But Evgenia didn't budge. The trust was gone, and it could never be rebuilt. A week later, he really did sell his car and tried to send Evgenia the money through mutual friends. Tell her I sold my car, and I'm ready to give all the money to pay off the debts, he asked them. Let her see that I'm trying to fix the situation. But Evgenia refused to take the money. Let him pay his own credit card bills, she said. We'll deal with the shared loan in court. Vasily then turned to his mother for help, but Klavdia Mikhailovna flat out refused to sell anything. You gave it to me as a gift, she reminded him. And now you want to take it back?
No.
You should find a good job and earn money to pay your debts. Next, Vasily asked friends for a loan, but nobody was willing to lend such a large amount. The most he managed to collect was 50,000 rubles, enough for just one payment on the main loan. The bigger problem remained. Meanwhile, Evgenia found something unexpected after the divorce: freedom. She no longer had to adjust her life to her husband's plans or take his opinion into account for every decision. She got a job at a big company in a position she had never dared to dream about before. The salary was double what she used to earn, but the work involved business trips and irregular hours. Vasily had been against such a job before, but now there was nothing stopping her. The new job turned out to be exactly what she needed: interesting projects, professional growth, and a good salary. For the first time in years, Evgenia felt truly free and successful. 2 months after the divorce, something happened that even she didn't expect. Vasily called her in tears. "Genya, I have news for you," he said, his voice shaking. "What news?" "I found out where some more of our money went. Turns out my mom has another son, my younger brother, that she never told me about." Evgenia was stunned. "What do you mean, another son?" "He's 25. His name is Igor. Mom had him with another man when I was already 20. She hid his existence from me my whole life. And now I found out that part of the money I gave her, she was sending to him. He lives in Moscow, studies at a prestigious university. Mom pays his rent, bought him a car, and fully supports him. All with my money, with our money." Evgenia stayed silent, trying to process what she was hearing. "She spent over 1,000,000 rubles on him," Vasily went on. "She says he deserves a good life because he's talented. And about me, she said I'm already grown and should take care of myself." "How did you find out?" Evgenia asked. "I happened to come by to ask her for money for another loan payment, and Igor was visiting. She introduced him as my brother. At first I thought he was some distant relative, but then I learned the truth." Vasily's voice trembled with anger and hurt. "So while I was breaking my back to give her a good life, she was supporting another son with the same money and never said a word to me. And now? Now she says I should understand her motherly feelings, that she can't just leave her younger son without help. She told me to find a job and stop bothering her with my problems." Evgenia shook her head. Klavdia Mikhailovna had managed to use both her and Vasily, and also hide another child's existence. "And what are you doing now?" she asked. "Sleeping on a friend's couch, looking for a job, trying to figure out how to keep paying the loan." "And your mother? Is she helping?" "She says the only help she can offer is a kind word. She's not giving back the apartment or any money, says those were well-earned gifts for her motherly suffering." Evgenia gave a small, bitter laugh. Her mother-in-law had stayed true to herself until the very end. "Vasya, don't you regret ruining our family for a mother like that?" There was a long pause. "I regret it," Vasily said quietly. "I regret it very much. But it's too late to change anything." "True," Evgenia agreed. "Too late. So, how are you?" "I'm fine. Working, moving forward, planning my future." "Do you miss me?" "No, Vasya, I don't. Turns out it's much easier to live alone than with someone you can't trust." After that conversation, Vasily never called again. The divorce was finalized, the property was split. Evgenia kept the apartment, taking on the loan payments, with the condition that Vasily would pay his share within 5 years. A year passed. Evgenia got a promotion at work, bought a new car, and took a vacation in Europe. Her life was back on track, and she never once regretted her decision. She heard about Vasily only through occasional chats with mutual friends. He had found a job as a manager with a modest salary, rented a room in a shared apartment, and was barely making ends meet. The loan still hung over him like a sword, and his income was only enough for the minimum payments. Klavdia Mikhailovna kept living in luxury, but her relationship with her older son had completely fallen apart. Vasily visited her less and less, while she started paying more attention to her younger son. Igor had graduated from university and got a prestigious job, but his attitude toward his mother was selfish. He took her money, used her care, but never shared his own life with her and had no intention of helping her in return. One day, Evgenia accidentally ran into Vasily at a shopping mall. He had aged a lot, looked thinner, and was dressed very modestly. When he saw his ex-wife, he looked embarrassed, but still came up to say hello. "Hi, Genya," he said awkwardly. "How are you?" "Good," she answered. "And you?" "I'm working, getting by." They stood there in uncomfortable silence for a moment. Finally, Vasily spoke up. "Genya, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for everything. You were right from the very beginning." "I know," Evgenia nodded. "But it doesn't matter anymore." "My mom's been sick lately," he added. "Is it serious?" she asked.
Yes.
And my younger brother didn't even come to visit her. He said he's too busy. I'm sorry to hear that, Evgenia said, but her voice held neither spite nor much sympathy. She understands now what she's done, Vasily continued. She says she regrets ruining her relationship with you, that you were a good daughter-in-law. It's too late, Vasya. Too late to realize that now. Yes, too late, he agreed. Well, I have to go. Good luck to you. You too, she replied. They walked away from each other, and Evgenia thought that this conversation had put the final period in their story. There was nothing left between them. No grudges, no hopes, no regrets. 6 months later, Evgenia learned that Klavdia Mikhailovna had passed away. She had left her apartment and all her possessions to her younger son, who immediately sold everything and disappeared without a trace. Vasily was left only with his mother's debts and the responsibility of arranging her funeral. Evgenia didn't go to the funeral, but she sent a wreath, not out of pity for her mother-in-law, but out of respect for the 15 years of life that, for better or worse, were still part of her story. Now, 2 years after the divorce, Evgenia was truly happy. She had a job she loved, new friends, and exciting projects. She was planning to open her own business and felt that her life was just beginning. Sometimes, when she thought about the past, she realized the divorce hadn't been the end for her. It had been the start. The start of living honestly with herself, without compromises and without having to adjust to someone else's needs. Vasily, on the other hand, remained alone, burdened with debts and the bitter understanding that in chasing after his mother's approval, he had lost the only person who truly loved him and would have stood by him in hard times. But time never goes backward, and every choice has consequences. Vasily had made his choice when he put his mother's whims above his family's needs, and now he was paying for it with loneliness and regret. Evgenia chose freedom and honesty, and she never regretted it for a single moment. Life went on, and she was ready to face it head-on, with open eyes, a clear mind, and a firm decision never again to let anyone deceive her or control her future. Because the most important thing she had learned over the years was this: you can't build happiness on lies, and love cannot exist without trust and mutual respect. And if someone can't value what they have, then they don't deserve it.